Good challenge? No. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Yes, ma'am. That is true. That is very, very true. We love you, Lewis. She does too. It does, yeah. It's a two-way street. But today, we're going to try our best to study chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7 of Proverbs. That's what I meant about, do you want a good challenge? Because it really, those verses talk about pretty much one concept. It's a warning. It's a warning of not to do something. So we'll look at that in a few minutes. And then chapter 8 is another one of those standalone chapters. You know, we get back into the wisdom, and it teaches the excellence of wisdom. And then if you look at chapter 9, it's another standalone chapter about wisdom. And then from chapters 10 all the way through 33, they're talking about Solomon's wise sayings. So once we get to chapter 10, we can actually pick up some speed and go through some chapters there as well, because it's all the same context. And it gives us the application of wisdom. Brian and I were just talking about that. He and I taught Proverbs together at the high school level last quarter. And we emphasized to 15, 16, and 17-year-old boys that if we read Proverbs, the number one goal is to apply it to our life. So how do we do that? That's great to have the knowledge, to have the understanding, and apply all that to get the wisdom. But if we don't apply it to our everyday lives, we've really not done anything. So that's what the goal is to try to do. So as you remember in Proverbs chapter 1, we began in the beginning of knowledge. We defined what that was, and we worked through some of those verses. And then we got to chapter 2, and we studied the value of wisdom. We cherish it. So we worked our way through that and got to chapter 3, and we talked about the guidance for the young. You know, who is young, who is old, and where is the guidance? Chapter 3 is a great context to learn the guidance. And then we moved over to chapter 4, and we talked about security. The security of wisdom, the security that it has for our everyday life, but also, you know, once you learn the wisdom and you have the wisdom, it makes for a secure life. So that was chapter 4. And then last week, that's where we ended, was the security. Now, right in the middle of value and security and guidance, Solomon, through inspiration, gives us a warning. What's a warning? How would you tell someone what a warning is? I'm sorry, a reminder to people. That's right. So, is there a difference between caution and warning? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Lewis said, if you see a rattlesnake and it's about to strike, and you're in a position that you can tell someone it's danger, would you tell them? Absolutely. We would. That's a great example of warning. Cam gave me some cheese. That's really good cheese, by the way. But he gave me some hot pepper cheese. Do y'all like hot things? Do you like spicy foods? I really do. I like the taste of it, except when it gets to the point that it starts to hurt you. I don't like that necessarily. But he gave me some pepper, hot pepper cheese. You know what he told me? You really like hot stuff, right? Was that a warning or a caution? It was a caution, right? It's different than the rattlesnake, right? He said, you kind of eat this at your own discretion. I did. Had it on cheese. I'm out, by the way, if you want to bring me some more. I'm just teasing. It's good, okay? But that's the difference between a caution and a warning. There's a sign on Genesis Road, one of the red lights, they're either by design or it's malfunctioned. It's just blinking yellow. And there's a sign about 100 yards before the red light that says, flashing light ahead. Is that a warning or a caution? It's a caution, right? You know, side note, how many of y'all know how to go through a caution light? There's not many in Cumberland County that know how to do it. I may be one of them. I may be doing it wrong. So Solomon, once he starts writing these words down in chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7, is a warning. There's no caution to it. It says, do not do this. Yes, ma'am. Yes. She said that a warning is that you're in danger. That's when you get the warning. Something could hurt you physically. Something could hurt you mentally. It could kill you. A rattlesnake bite would hurt you severely, right? It's dangerous. That's what Solomon's teaching. So it begins in chapter 5, verse 1, the pearl of adultery. My son, pay attention to my wisdom, lend your ear to my understanding. That's a pretty strong warning, in my opinion. Listen to my wisdom. Now, he's talking about the pearl of adultery. What's a pearl? How would the adultery in Solomon's mind looks really, really good? Would you agree? Based on his life with 700 wives and 300 concubines, it looked pretty good to him, right? Now he's saying, my son, pay attention. How do you pay attention? If it's dangerous and we're getting a warning, how do we pay attention? You have to listen first, she said. We're driving down the road and we see a big sign, a big red sign. It says, bridge is out. What do? You hit the accelerator and you see if you can make it, right? Is that what you do? Is that experience? Only if you're Victor, Paige said. Not really, right? We hit the brakes, we turn around, we figure out how to get our vehicle going the other way. That's the words that Solomon is using in these 3 chapters. He's using bridges out, do not go down this path. What does the words do not do mean to you? Unfortunately, in my opinion, in today's world, it's an invitation to do whatever we ever asked not to do. Right? So how do we heed the warning of don't do? Verse 13. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to those who instruct me. I was on the verge of total ruin in the midst of the assembly and congregation. When God wrote Proverbs and he allowed Solomon to use his pen, I think his personality came out. And he was at a point of life that he was almost at a ruined state. Right? And he says, I didn't listen to my fathers. I didn't listen to the teachers. I didn't listen to the wisdom. But you need to listen to my guidance. A warning is all great and fine until we don't pay attention to it. It's great. Warnings are great until we don't pay attention to it, right? That's what Solomon's teaching throughout the whole chapter of 5. So look at verse 15. Drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own well. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be only your own and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth. That's strong language, isn't it? He's saying, warning, don't participate in this adulterous behavior. I did that. I was almost at ruin. He was at his bitter end. And he's saying, now rejoice with the wife of your youth. Chapter 5 is a warning for all those verses. Don't do it. Yes, Russell.
That's not the last spot you see this discussion about the wife of your youth.
Oh, no.
This is what you see it in Isaiah 54:6, where he's warning them against. Don't keep in mind this is the wife of your youth. And then, of course, in Malachi, that was one of the great sins that had been committed. Mm-hmm. And he told them, you 2:14, as it says, because the Lord has been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. And of course, if Israel had listened to this advice from Solomon, it would have gone so much better for them, but of course they didn't.
That's right. For those of you that are studying with us online and conference call, Russell just said that this is not the first time that this language has been used, the wife of your youth. And he referenced Isaiah, he referenced Malachi 2:14, and where it's being taught. And if Israel had listened to these words, they wouldn't have got in the mess that they got in. And that's a very good point, because it's reoccurring. How many times do you have to hear a warning for it to be sincere or truthful? How many times do you have to hear it? Depends on how old you are. That's a good point. Depends on how old you are.
Well, sometimes you have to get stung or bitten, the snake have to be burned out.
That's right. Tammy said you have to be bitten or stung. That's how you learn. The first time that a warning is spoke, it's true. Different question is, how many times do we have to hear it before we change our mind? We have to be stung. We have to be bitten. We have to live in this adulterous behavior. Solomon says, don't do it at all. Actually, some of the language in chapter 6 is turn away from it and go the other direction. How can we apply those words today? Very easy, isn't it? The application is the same. The application is turn away from sin. Brian, you need to turn away from blank. You fill in your own sin. You fill in what the temptation is for you. We don't see in these words, we don't see Solomon using, let's see how close we can get to the snake or the bee or the danger. Let's see how close we can get to the bridge that's out before we go into the water. We don't.
It has to do with the authority. Who's telling you what authority they have? If an elder, if God tells you something, an elder tells you something, a deacon or a brother or sister, take that with much more weight than I do with somebody that I may not even know.
Right. That's right. Dennis said that the authority of the warning, he tends to listen to it more. You know, if a brother, sister in Christ says, hey, you don't need to do this, with love, he's going to take that better than if it was just somebody off the street.
If mama, I'm talking about a wife, if mama says something, let him
Oh, sure. Mama's has authority, for sure. So, chapter 5, to me, beckons the question. When we see the sign that says warning, bridge is out, do we automatically believe it? Or do we have questions? Or did somebody just put that up there as a joke? Did somebody think the bridge was out and it's not anymore and they forgot to take the sign down? Is it just that sign's been up there for 50 years. My grandpa told me about that bridge being out. I drove this road at what point does the warning not become a warning? Do you understand what I'm saying? We don't do that. The first time we see the bridge is out, we don't say, I wonder if Victor was out there and he just thinks it's a good idea and it's going to be fun. I'm teasing. Victor wouldn't do that, would you? But what I'm saying is we don't say, oh, the bridge is out. I wonder if that's a joke. I wonder if it's been there a long time. We take immediate action to turn around and do something different. Now, the 6 months down the road, you go by down the road and that sign is still there. Bridge is still out, right? 5 years down the road, you see the sign, what happens? I'm going to see if the bridge is out, right? Solomon is teaching that he's fast-forwarded 5 years and he knows the bridge is out. The adultery is, you can't do this anymore. That's the whole context of chapter 5. Absolutely. Until we get bit or stung. Russell referenced that it's a perception. You know, we don't think something is dangerous until it is dangerous. He referenced the Windows 98 security systems on our computers. And we can think of it all day long, you know, don't touch the hot stove. That's a pretty good warning. How many 5-year-olds have touched the hot stove knowing that it's hot? I wonder, they don't get burned. That's exactly right. So here is what I think Solomon is teaching us in chapter 5. Is to not touch the stove, not go and looking for the bridge, listen to my experience. How do you change someone's way of thinking? I've asked you that before. That's what he's trying to do. Listen to me. Don't do this. This warning is real. Where does Dennis has made the point about the authority. Where is Solomon's authority when he says, don't do the adultery? Where's his authority? It's what Tammy said. He's got bit. He got stung. It's experience. Because he was the wisest man on earth until Jesus walked on our earth. He was the wisest and the richest man that we know of. Even richer than Abraham. That's rich. When the queen gave him money, it was equivalent to what? $1.5 million in our money or something like that? Is that right? And that was just a gift. I mean, I looked at that and he went, okay, I'll put it on my other 17 million piles of $1 million or whatever. Right? He was that rich. And he's saying to his son and to us, do not do it. You don't have to experience it. You don't have to think about it. I've been there, I've done that, and I'm telling you not to.
But don't you think a lot of people, when they're given a warning, they think, oh, how bad is it?
Yep. That's exactly right. Tammy said, don't we think when we give them the warning, oh, really, how bad can it actually really be? I'm strong enough to get through this, or it's not going to be that dangerous to me. That's right. And that generates, how do we change our thinking? How do we change what we're going to think about? How do we say, that warning's real, it's dangerous, I'm not going to do that? Is there some obedience in that decision? Okay, I agree with Tammy. I'm going to say, yeah, that's not me. That's not that dangerous to me. But you know what? I'm going to listen to that command because I want to be pleasing to God. And I think that's what chapter 5 boils down to in the rest of the new law from Matthew to Revelation, right? Is that not where we need to put our stake in the ground and say, okay, the warning may not be that dangerous to me, but I'm never going to know because I want to be pleasing to God. And I'm going to listen to that warning. And then the further it goes, the further the time goes, the easier it is to get away from that warning, right? Any other comments or questions on chapter 5? I know that's very quickly. And that moves us into chapter 6, which it talks about, right on the heels of a warning, dangerous promises. You know what a dangerous promise is? Look at the end of verse 1, and we'll read a few verses. If you have shaken hands in pledge for a stranger, you are snared by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself. For you have come into the hand of your friend. Go and humble yourself. Plead with your friend. Give no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, with having no captain, overseer, or ruler. Provides her supplies in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. How long will you slumber, O sluggard, when you will rise from your sleep? So what is a dangerous promise? Not to oversimplify this at all, but these verses in this context, right after a warning, now we're getting to a dangerous promise. Do what you say you're going to do. Your word is what? Don't give vain promises. Don't say that you can do something and not follow through with it. How many of us are maybe guilty of that? I'll be first in line to say I'm guilty of that. Not meaning to say, yes, I can do that. And then we dismiss it under the umbrella, oh, I forgot. Yeah, we probably did forget. So an illustration for these verses is your word is good. Do what you say you're going to do. When I was young, right before Heather and I got married, I worked in a bank. I was trying to learn the processes, and I was in the president of the bank's office, and a guy came in and goes, hey, Ricky, I need $10,000. Brian went and got $10,000 for this man. My boss said, hey, go get him $10,000. I said, okay. I went and gave him $10,000. They shook hands. And he walked out the door with $10,000. And as far as I know, the paperwork was never filled out. Barbara would be cringing right now. She would. She'd be going. And John Tatum would be like, ooh. Yeah. I asked Brandon if you can borrow money on your farm without signing any piece of paper. Ask him today when he comes in after class. He's going to say, I love you, I trust you, but probably not. So what's the point? Ricky trusted our customer, and our customer said, I'll pay you back. Now, when the auditors came in the next year and asked where that interest came from, that paperwork may have got generated. Because Ricky probably went, yeah, I got this. I know where it is. 30 days went by, the guy come back with interest, paid his loan, and we went on. That is doing what you say you're going to do. A handshake and me saying, that's right, I'm going to do that, is binding as a written contract. It is, right? Because that's when you become pleasing to God. I don't care about the paperwork. I do for Miss Barbara because she wants it done right, and I want my bank to take care of me that way. I want it to be done right. But it doesn't really mean anything, right? Because as Christians, when we choose to obey God, the dangerous promises go away. Because we're always going to do what we say we're going to do, right? That's chapter 6 in a nutshell. So now we have a warning. We have dangerous promises. Do what you say you're going to do. And then the end of chapter 6, or the middle of chapter 6, talks about a wicked man. Who is a wicked man? What is a wicked mankind? Who is wicked? $22 ago, September the 11th, 2001. Is that right? Was it 2001? Our country got terrorized. 2 buildings went to the ground. Planes went to the ground. That's wicked, right? I agree. It is very wicked. But you know who the wicked men are? Those that are not obeying God. That's as simple as it can be. And that's what Solomon's teaching, right? Well, I've got a family member that's not a member of the church. He don't believe in God, and he is a good person. He takes care of our family. You wouldn't say that person's wicked, right? You wouldn't use the word wicked in the description of that person. That's what chapter 6 is teaching, is it's either godly or wicked. Agree or disagree? There's nothing in between, right? There's nothing in between. So the wicked man, verse 12. A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes, he shuffles his feet, he points with his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. Therefore his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. And then it talks about 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift to running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. So who is the wicked man? A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. And we can read them right there. So Solomon, through inspiration, has given us a warning against adultery. Don't do it. He's saying, let your word be your word. You know, Jesus said that in the New Testament, didn't he? He said, let your yeas be yeas and your nays be nays. Right? He taught us that. Yes, sir. Right. It does, yes, sir. He went back to 9/11 and he said, you know, everyone was running to church. Everyone was running to God at that point. Is that what it's going to take? Is it going to take another one of those acts? Makes you wonder. Makes you consider it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she said that's what Revelation's about. It's teaching us that's coming. Yes. Hold on just a minute, Russell. Let me get Jerry and I'll come to you. Yes, sir. Jerry asked, what is a proud look? That's a good question. Maybe a haughty spirit. Maybe you look at someone and you go, I'm a little better than them. I think maybe. I don't think so. It probably could be. He asked if it was a physical look. Is it a physical look? And it probably could be, but I think it's more of a heart issue. Don't you? Attitude. Yeah. How are we going to do this? Yes, sir, Russell. Mm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Mm-hmm. We allow it, don't we? Russell said that as a country, we're guilty of all 7 of these. As a country, we have a proud look. We've been shedding innocent blood for 50 years, he said. And it goes back to, how are you going to think about it? Are you going to do what God has told us to do? Now, okay, we get chapter 5, we get a warning of don't do adultery. Chapter 6 is dangerous promises. Do what you say you're going to do. And then he defines a wicked man. And then at the end of chapter 6, I think the context is verse 20 through chapter 7, verse 5. Again, another warning of adultery. And he uses the word we would use in our language, beware. Is a warning stronger than the word beware? If you asked me before I started reading Proverbs, I might say yes. I may have said, yeah, beware is probably not as strong of language. But I think they're the same word. If Lewis goes to that rattlesnake scenario again, he says, warning, rattlesnake. Or he says, beware, you don't get bit. It's pretty much the same, isn't it? What do you think? I think Solomon's teaching it's the same, because here he goes again. Beware of adultery. Okay, here's the second time in about 40 verses, the way we have it broke down. Beware of adultery. My son, keep your, verse 20, my son, keep your father's command and do not forsake the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you roam, they will lead you. When you sleep, they will keep you. And when you are awake, they will speak speak with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Don't do it. Here's your second warning. Do not do it. And here's how you don't do it. You bind them on your heart. You wrap them around your neck. The law is the light. It's going to guide your path. Remember what we've taught you. Always think about not doing it. Then chapter 7, verse 1, my son, keep my words and treasure my commands within you. Keep my commands and live, and my law as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your nearest kin, that they may keep you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words. Okay, we get a warning from Lewis that says, beware, you're going to get bit. What's going to happen after that point? He possibly could grab a hold of you and hold you and move you back. There would be some physical action, right? So Solomon is saying, okay, here's your warning, don't do it, but I'm giving you wisdom to not do it. How do you do that? You bind it on your fingers. You let the wisdom appear as the apple of your eye. What's the apple of your eye? You ever heard that before? What does that mean, Tommy? Help me out. Got an obligation because of what you've been given. That's true. Right. Yeah. At the end there, he said the expectation was those of us that have given it, it's going to be a little higher. And I agree with that. The apple of your eye is something that you probably would cherish. It brings joy to your heart, right? It brings you to a point that you're happy. If I ask Tommy right now who's the apple of his eye, you know what he's going to tell me. And I could go around the room and I could ask each one of you. And your answers would be different, but same. How are they different but same? Be a different name, right? Be a different name for each of us, but the heart is doing the same thing. Where it's happy, it's going to be joyous, I'm going to treasure it, I'm going to value it. So he spent all this time telling us what value and wisdom, and in chapter 8 we'll get the excellence of wisdom. And right in the middle he says, don't do adultery, and here's how you cannot do it. Listen to your mom, bind it on your fingers. What does that mean? Bind it on your fingers. Is it physical, a tattoo on your fingers that says wisdom? Could be a reminder. But it also could be some action, right? It could be some, whatever I work with my hands, I'm not going to figure out a way to have adultery. I'm going to work in a way that's opposite of that. How do you make it the apple of your eye? How do you bind it around your neck? Somebody said it earlier, it's all about the attitude, right? It's all about the choice that you make. So chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7 of Proverbs, Solomon is teaching us through his experience. And he's saying, don't do it. Please don't do it. And I almost look at Solomon if I could see his physical appearance when he's writing these words, it's almost, in my mind, him going, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. Change the way you're thinking. Let me show you how. Here's the tools to help you. Please, please don't do that. Is that a fair assumption of what Solomon is doing to us? He's made it real, and he's making us be in a situation that we have to choose to be bit, right, Tammy? You know, I'm going to choose this. It's not that dangerous. It's that pride look. It's that my heart is, I got this. I'm strong enough. I can do it. You know, Solomon thought he was too. And he got bit and stung, and that ruined. So, look at the end of chapter 7, verse 24. Here's again Solomon encouraging us to listen. Now, therefore, listen to me, my children. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Listen, children, please do not do this. Pay attention. Can you hear something and not understand it? Happens all the time. So if Solomon were to say today, please understand this, is that adding to or taking away from the text? That's what he's teaching us, is to understand it. And then verse 25. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths. For she has cast down many wounded, and all who were slain by her were strong men. That's interesting. I wish we had time to talk about that. Who's the strong? Are you strong enough to do this warning? We think we are. Solomon says we're not. And then verse 27. Her house is the way to hell, descending to the chambers of death. Okay, here's the warning. I've given you everything that you need to do not to do this, but if you choose, the consequence is going to be a separation from God. Very quickly, that's chapters 5, 6, and 7. Good Lord willing, Sunday morning we'll do chapter 8. We'll talk about the excellence of wisdom. Thank you very much.